So I want to take a step back and talk about your history and how you came to be a writer. So what draws you to writing?
You know, I feel like in terms of just in the grand sweep of my life, what has brought me here, a lot of it has been just I was playing and making up, games and stories that I was, dramatically acting out from when I was very, very young. My parents still occasionally talk about, like, my kindergarten play, where I, was playing, like, a granny or something and put on a voice and tried to do it very in character when I was, like, 6.
Oh my gosh.
Probably younger. So, yeah, it's always just been, I like telling stories and acting out stories, and writing them down is just kind of the easiest way to share them.
So when did you know that you wanted to pursue this as a career versus just something you enjoy doing?
Yeah, so I always knew that writing was going to be an important part of my life, but up until about halfway through college, I thought I was probably going to pursue acting as my sort of main thing. And yeah, probably the thing that got me was I had a directing for film class in college that I am many things. I'm a writer, I'm an actor, I like to think I'm a good editor. I'm a terrible director. I am indecisive, I don't work well with, like, moving actors around. It is just not something that comes naturally to me. It drives me up the wall. But it was a requisite for my major, so I had to. So, and a lot of this class we were, using other classmates as the actors, and then, we were acting in their projects and recording them and then watching them back. And it was really just a bit where seeing myself on film, I don't know if it was like a body image thing or a self-worth thing or what, but it was just kind of like this, I don't feel as comfortable with this.
Really?
Yeah, and I still like performing. I still like going on stage, but it was just kind of having to see myself was just like I don't think I have just the stomach for this right now.
Interesting.
Where my writing, it was like, I was definitely in classes where my work was being critiqued and, workshopped, and, it's not like I thought my writing was perfect, but it was just an easier way to process having someone looking directly at my artistic output and analyzing it. Mm-hmm. Plus getting to feel just a greater sense of ownership over it. Like, with some exceptions, most people who act aren't doing, one-man shows that they have written entirely and done all of the, staging and lighting and props and costume for, where, acting in the majority of cases can't exist as a one-person thing, where writing can. So I think at that stage in my life, I needed to sort of have some stuff that I could let percolate as a one-person artistic endeavor, and until I felt sort of more comfortable getting it out in the world, where I was at that particular moment, I didn't feel like I could really do that with acting.
Interesting. So you started college as an acting major to go into performing. How did your parents feel about that? Because I kind of feel like that's the same as, like, I want to be a writer for a living. Your idea is, which restaurant do you want to work at? And, why can't you get a steady job? So how did your parents feel when you told them, this is what I want to do?
I feel like, so my parents have been incredibly supportive, actually, of my artistic endeavors, because I think I think long before I went to college, they realized that the writing was on the wall there. There was very little way I was going to be doing anything else. Not that I wasn't, good at other things, but it was very much they probably could call it from when I was 6. It's like, okay, she's doing something artistic, because if she doesn't, she's going to drive herself nuts.
That's awesome.
So yeah, they have both been incredibly supportive of really whatever path I've wanted to take, and I'm very grateful for them. But yeah, I think there was definitely a long time for them to prepare for it, because there was very little illusion that I was going anywhere else.
Did your family, are they in the arts? Do you come from a family of artistic people?
I would say I come from a family of creative people, but not really anyone who has worked professionally in the arts. My dad is an attorney, and my mom's stay-at-home, has done a lot of retail, and yeah, just a lot of creative problem solving and interpersonal skills, but definitely not really from an artistic background.
Where did you study? And tell me, what their program was like and why you chose that program.
Yeah, so I went to Smith College in Massachusetts, and it is a women's school that, and honestly, I think that was just such a lovely environment for me, getting to, be interacting largely with other creative women. Smith is part of the 5-college program, so we did have, some male students taking exchange classes from, Hampshire, Amherst, UMass. But, the majority of my class was female writers. And most of my specifically writing classes were largely workshopping. They did a lot of blended level classes where, people in level 1 would be writing week-to-week prompts, write a scene about something with blah, blah, blah. Just sort of picking new stories and toying around with stuff, where, level 2 students would be writing one long project over the course of the term, and, submitting, scenes, every week, every other week on specific deadlines. But then, the class as a whole would be doing, table reads of people's work, and then after the reads, giving feedback. And yeah, that was one of really my first experiences of getting to hear other people reading my work and putting voice to it. And honestly, that was trippy. And you realize when you're having someone else read it, how much you've left inside your head. There are all of the things that you just kind of fill in the gaps because you know the story. And then when you hear it out loud, you realize, that never actually, the context never made it onto the page. To have it being able to step back and look at your work from someone else's eyes was a really important process for me. And then, trying to work on having that internal, external, can you step back from your own work enough to try and analyze it as someone who's seeing it fresh. Really, the classes that really just put me to the test were those playwriting ones where it was workshopping scripts. We had both playwriting and screenwriting classes, so getting to talk about, okay, what does the existence of a camera change? And, how does that change your priorities, change what you can do? And yeah, some wonderful stuff there. I largely was taking those classes with my professor, Andrea Hairston, who she is an author herself, author and playwright, and she actually provided one of the promotional quotes for
Nice.
Traveling Triple C, which I'm incredibly grateful for. Got to get back in touch with her after I graduated in 2012, and getting to get back in touch and be like, I'm publishing a book, and would you like to promote my book? It got to feel very yeah, see, I did a thing.
That's great. So how different is what you studied in writing and what you've learned as a writer There's a difference, I think, between
Definitely.
school and real world experience. What are some of those differences? And similarities?
Yeah, and honestly, probably, I'm going to praise Professor Hairston and then immediately talk about where I largely diverge from her. Not super largely, but just her thing that was very useful for me to work on when I was taking her classes was that, especially with script writing, anything essential has to go into the dialogue, because a director can ignore anything in the stage directions. If it's important, it has to be in the dialogue. And that was very useful for me to learn in order to be like, okay, yes, you can't let eye contact or knowing gazes carry plot points. It really does need to be articulated in the dialogue, having the characters voice it. It is still a visual medium. But I feel like it was important for me to learn how to tighten my stage directions up that much, and then over the years I've loosened them back out. So there are still a lot of, quiet, silent moments of interpersonal connection that, probably would have gotten circled in my scripts in school. But it's like, okay, I like to think that you always need to learn the rules in order to break them. So I like to think that I know enough to know when to use that appropriately. And then, a lot of my wordiness just translated over to my prose, so it all worked out. It's definitely a good thing about, straddling the line there. It's like, okay, if there's anything that I really want to be a play and then realize can't be a play, I'll just make it a short story.